Hey everybody, it's Jenna. Today I am tackling a question that I have been asked a lot lately in my 100th video Q&A, in random comments on social media, and just in general. Should you read Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow before next year's Supergirl movie? How funny would it be if I just said yeah, and then... Given the name of this channel and just my entire gimmick, you would probably expect this to be an easy yes or no answer, but I honestly think that it is way more nuanced than that. In case you have no idea what I'm talking about, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is an 8-issue maxi series written by Tom King with art by Bill Quee-Evely, colors by Matt Lopez, and lettering by Clayton Cowles. It was published by DC from 2021 through 2022, and it opens with Kara in a unique spot, spending her 21st birthday getting drunk and wallowing in her emotions on a red sun planet, where the alcohol can actually affect her. When a young girl named Ruthie brings her into her quest for revenge, the two of them traverse the cosmos and are changed forever in the process. Woman of Tomorrow has been cited as the inspiration for the Supergirl movie since the day that it was announced as part of the DCU slate in January of 2023, down to it having the full subtitle. It wasn't until an interview that James Gunn gave earlier this summer that we learned that the subtitle was being dropped, which is fine, because I feel like everyone was just gonna walk up to the multiplex and call it Supergirl anyway, and now we know it'll avoid confusion with Man of Tomorrow. Let me just start off by saying, of course I absolutely think you should read Woman of Tomorrow. Not just because I'm me, but because I truly believe that it is one of the best superhero comics to be produced so far this decade. It is gorgeous and profound and funny and really elevated Kara's reputation as a character in a way that no one knew she needed. But the question of whether or not to read it beforehand requires a little bit of soul searching and figuring out how you engage with superhero stories and stories in general. That is not because Supergirl the movie is going to be a straight one-for-one adaptation of Woman of Tomorrow. I am not saying that from some secret insider information or some galaxy-brained theory. It is just basic common sense based on what we already know. For one thing, it kind of can't be a straight adaptation thanks to the addition of Jason Momoa's Lobo, a character who King originally pitched as Woman of Tomorrow's co-lead before it was pivoted to being a Supergirl solo book. There's a term I like to use which requires a little bit of explanation because it sounds kind of ridiculous out of context, called leg lamping. It stems from the sexy lamp test, which was coined by comic writer Kelly Sue DeConnick in 2012 as a way to encourage better representation for female characters. Quote, if you can replace your female character with a sexy lamp and the story still basically works, you need another draft. They have to be protagonists, not devices. Not only was she absolutely onto something there, but I feel like some media has fallen into the habit of leg lamping characters of all genders and just interchangeably slotting someone into a story without taking into account their personality and their agency and how they would react to what's happening around them, turning them into NPCs, if you will. Lobo is a character who is basically impossible to leg lamp, outside of maybe just putting him in a crowd scene without any lines of dialogue. His personality is too big, his gimmick is too memorable, and in the context of the movie's story, there's some real potential for him and Kara to bond over their love of booze and their shared trauma over being the last of their kind. That is already going to shake things up beyond the original text of Woman of Tomorrow, and it's going to be really fun to see what exactly that looks like. David Krumholtz, who plays Zor-El in the movie, confirmed in a recent interview that it is, quote, very true to the source material, but it is also, quote, that comic plus Lobo. And honestly, Supergirl shouldn't be a straight adaptation of Woman of Tomorrow. I've been thinking a lot lately about adaptations and how they function best when they're able to complement the source material instead of trying to replace or overshadow it. I will probably make a video about that sooner than later because Lord knows there are a lot of examples to talk about. But I will say in the meantime that I think the DCU has been handling that balance really well so far. They're capturing the spirit of whatever characters are at the center of the story and folding in concepts and Easter eggs and tonal elements that can be recognized from the comics, but they're also telling a fresh story that is best suited for the medium of film or television or animation. And I feel like Supergirl will be the same, even as it is, in James's words, adapting a specific story. It can't, and it honestly shouldn't, replace the magic of reading Woman of Tomorrow, of imagining what swear word Kara is saying in a block of censored dialogue, of turning a page and discovering a new plot twist, or of beholding one of Evely's incredible splash pages. But it'll hopefully use the narrative framework laid out by that story to tell something just as magical. That brings me to the soul searching. I think the answer of whether or not to read Woman of Tomorrow beforehand depends on your relationship to plot and story, how they matter to you, and how you navigate a fandom in an internet age that seems to exist to take the surprise out of them wherever it can. I have written and deleted so many parts of this section, which will probably make up their own video, because I don't think being a plot-focused viewer or reader is inherently bad, and I do understand the value of occasionally turning off your brain and just letting the spectacle happen. But if you found this video, you probably already care about these comics and movies and shows on some fundamental level. And in the current beast of online culture, having a field day over out-of-context spoilers, judging a movie purely on how bombastic its third act fight or post-credits scene is, or flanderizing characters who they only know from one comic or animated series or AI-generated paragraph on Google, it can be hard to preserve the magic of actually discovering something in a story in the way that the creators intended for you to. If you are one of those people who is debating reading Woman of Tomorrow beforehand, but has yet to be spoiled on some of the more specific twists and turns, I think you wield a unique power in the lead up to this movie. And how you wield that power really depends on how you feel about knowing certain things ahead of time. If your biggest priority is plot and you don't want to know anything about what happens to Kara and Ruthie until your butt's in a theater seat next summer, then I would say to wait until after to read it. Again, the movie could take a different approach, but there are some events that I expect to be constants in both versions of the story. And I'm trusting that the movie and the marketing campaign will preserve some of those surprises as much as possible, especially because one in particular would be a very wild way to lead a trailer. If you're fine with knowing plot points ahead of time, either because you're the type of person who intentionally seeks out spoilers, which, oh boy, do I have a video for you, or because your biggest priority is the how instead of the what, then hell yeah, read it ahead of time. That is not just because Woman of Tomorrow is an exceptional comic that I would recommend you read anyway. It's because you'll get to appreciate the nuances of it being adapted into a new medium, in a way that we haven't really had with the modern live-action superhero era. Anytime a movie or a TV event has lifted its name from a specific comic storyline, the results have ranged from a massive universe-wide concept that has to be reconstructed around different characters, like Civil War and Crisis on Infinite Earths, to a great story that borrows the occasional hype moments and aura, like Winter Soldier, to something that is laughably in name only, like Flashpoint. We haven't really had one of these blockbuster movies have such a singular and specific focus, while also having the freedom to tell the story in its own way, in the way that it seems like Supergirl is going to. And based on James's comments, it might not be the last DCU project to take that kind of approach. Every single time that I reread Woman of Tomorrow or a sequence from it, my head starts buzzing about how Evelyn's designs will translate on screen, about whether or not certain lines of dialogue will carry over, and about where the hell Lobo actually slots into the story. And if you want to join that party, I welcome you to it. Either way, I just love that people are even asking this question to begin with. The fact that so many collected editions of Woman of Tomorrow and of other books sold out after the Slate announcement, and that my For You page is full of TikToks of people gravitating towards the comics after Superman, genuinely never gets old for me. Like I said earlier, the complement between comics and their adaptations has always been possible. Hell, it is a huge part of why I do what I do. It just hasn't felt as tangible and effortless as it has with this universe, and with something like Supergirl. Are you excited for Supergirl? Have you read or will you be reading Woman of Tomorrow? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends if you haven't already done so. As always, you can find me on social media, especially on Threads at Hey It's Jenna Lynn. Merch is available at the link in the description. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, go read some comics.